Today I'm going to show you how to make gingerbread cookies. One of my favorite cookies to make around the holidays. I love the flavor from all the different spices we put in the batter, and they're not overly sweet. I got my stand mixer here with 1.5 sticks of unsalted butter. We want to make sure that this butter is softened. To that, we'll add 3/4 of a cup of dark brown sugar. We'll just get that incorporated. You want to make sure this is mixed very well. Scrape down the sides with the rubber spatula if you have to. You don't want chunks of butter because it'll affect the batter. To that, we'll add 1/2 cup of molasses. Incorporate that. The molasses really gives the gingerbread cookies that distinct flavor. 1 whole egg and 1 tablespoon of some good vanilla. Mix that together. And that's our wet ingredients for these gingerbread cookies. So we'll just set this aside and we'll get our dry ingredients together. Have 3 cups of all-purpose flour. Make sure your cups are leveled off. Have 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Teaspoon of salt. And the spice mixture. 1 tablespoon of ground ginger, 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon each of allspice and clove. Plenty of flavor for these gingerbread cookies, and you can feel free to add any spices you like. Nutmeg works as well, cardamom is nice, black pepper works as well too, if you want a little bit of that bite. So I'm just going to whisk these dry ingredients together, and we're going to add this in batches to our wet ingredients. We'll do this in thirds. Turn the mixer on low so you're not covered in flour. We want to gently fold this in. Put in another third. Again, put the mixture on low. You don't want to overmix this. And we'll add the rest of our flour here. Again, scraping the sides with the rubber spatula. And just till it's incorporated. Now that our dough is together, this is ready to go. Flour is surface here. We'll remove the dough from our stand mixer. And this dough is going to be sticky, that's normal. I'll show you a trick to rolling this out in a little bit. Don't add extra flour to it, the dough is supposed to be sticky. We'll just bring this together. We don't want to knead the dough, there's no reason for that. Just bring it together, don't overwork it. And from here I like to cut it in half, because this dough is going to chill for a minimum of 2 hours. Very important that the dough is completely chilled. So I'm going to wrap each half in plastic wrap. And I like to just push it down into a disc. This will help it cool faster, and it'll be easier to roll out. I'll do that for the other half. And put this in the fridge. Again, minimum 2 hours. You could do it at least to overnight, or you could leave it in the fridge a couple of days if you're not ready to bake the cookies right away. So this is after just over 2 hours. I have some parchment paper here, and this is my trick to rolling out the dough, since it's still going to be sticky. And again, that's normal. Take it out here, and I'm going to lightly flour a piece of parchment paper here, rather large piece of parchment paper. Make sure the whole surface of the parchment paper is dusted with flour. And if we weren't using the parchment paper and we're just rolling this out on the work surface, it's very likely to stick to the work surface, and then it's just not going to work out. So the parchment paper really helps out. I'm going to dust our gingerbread dough here. And just put this on the parchment paper, and I have one more piece of parchment paper that we're going to put on top of that. And this will prevent our gingerbread dough from sticking to the surface. And just roll this out in between both pieces of parchment paper. Want it no thicker than 1/4 inch. Go from the center out. And you can see here what happens if you don't flour your parchment paper. The dough just doesn't come up and you're just left with a sticky mess, and it's very frustrating. So just continue rolling out the dough here, and then just remove your top piece of parchment paper. Probably should have floured that a little bit, but still came off. And then we have our rolled out dough. So I have my gingerbread man molds here, and I have a gingerbread woman mold as well. You could use any cookie mold you like, or you could just cut these into squares. I have a sheet tray with a silicone mat on it, this way nothing will stick. If you don't have a silicone mat, you could just use parchment paper lightly floured. And then we'll just use our molds to get our cookies out. Don't go too crazy on getting so many cookies on your first dough that's rolled out, because any leftover dough you could put back together and roll it out again. This batch will give you a generous amount of cookies. And again, you can see how easily they come off the parchment paper that we floured it. We'll just space these guys apart just a little bit. They're not really going to expand as they bake. And we're going to bake these for 7 minutes for a softer cookie. If you want a harder cookie, bake it closer to 9 minutes. You can see all the leftover dough I have here. I'm just going to put that together and roll it out again after these cook for more cookies. So take these guys, pop them in the oven about 7 minutes. And just like that, they're done. These are great. Since the dough is chilled, they held their shape. We'll transfer them to a wire rack to cool down a bit. And after they cooled for 10 minutes or so, we're going to decorate them using royal icing. And royal icing is great for these gingerbread cookies because it'll harden relatively quickly. And you could do any designs you like. Just have fun with it and get creative. I'm definitely not very skillful in things like this, but I'll just give it a shot. This is obviously great to do with kids. You could add the food coloring to change the color of the royal icing. Just divide it up into different bowls and use any colors you like. Again, with any designs you like for the gingerbread men and women. My daughters love doing this. I'll take this one and just outline it with royal icing. And the spiced gingerbread goes great with the sweet icing. I like to add sprinkles or any Christmas decorations you like. I'll give this one some hair because they don't all have to be bald. That looks pretty good. Not too bad. A little messed up. Alright, there we go. Piping bag helps. If you don't have a piping bag, you could just cut a Ziploc bag and fill that with your royal icing and use that. That doesn't look too bad. There you go. There's some gingerbread cookies. A couple of different designs. I'll do the rest of these. That's my gingerbread cookie recipe. Give this a try. Decorate them how you like. Make this royal icing. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'll see you next time.